What's going on? What happened to you last week? Last week, man, the whole world fell apart. Everything went away. um, well, as you well know, the last episode of the Harius Codex is up and very good one. I'm very happy with it. I like where it's going. I'm working on the story going forward. So my biggest thing I'm trying to solve is, okay, what does I really want? What does Sane really want? What does Harris really want, and what is actually going on here is what I've been trying to uncover. Because just like you, I also don't know what's happening. I'm very confused myself. I'm trying to figure that out. I have the original first draft, and I'm just kind of ignoring it, and I'm going to rewrite what feels right after multiple listens. So I listened to the Harrius Codex episode Isolation. I don't know what I called it. Part 1. I listened to it countless times, and I've answered a lot of questions. I took a lot of notes and everything, but I'm still a little bit iffy on how to make this happen. So that's kind of my goal, is to figure that out, and that's what I've been working on when I can. As well as that, as you know, I was acquainting myself with more Joseph Campbell work and his understanding of the hero's journey. And that's something that I've been really opening up. This is just a part of the Joseph Campbell belief system, if you will, that he found throughout mythologies, the unithology, the oneness that they all can come from, localized mythologies, and how they're speaking for their own cultures. I think the myth is like a public dream, as he termed it. So that idea is, this is something we all believe as a people, right? As an American people, or as a Ugandan people, or whatever the fuck. That's what kind of mythology is. But there's also private myths like what we have. So what you're witnessing with the Harius Codex is a private myth. It's just my own inner journey I'm throwing onto, I would say paper, but to you, the screen, and I'm trying to see what is it telling me. Because that's basically what mythology is, as I'm learning. And I wanted to do this in real time with you, whoever you are, to kind of not just train you in a sense to how to do this for yourself, but also to kind of give courage to people that are afraid to go inward, which, I'll be honest, I know a lot of people that are afraid to go inward. In fact, most people I know are afraid to go inward. And I'll be honest, it fucking frustrates the hell out of me because they pretend like, no, I don't have to. Like, for me, that's not the problem. I just go to Jesus, or I just fucking go and, I don't know, play video games or something. I don't know what they do. They find ways to distract themselves. I only know like that, a lot of those kind of people, and so I find that fucking frustrating because like it's basically masking your problems, and that's why they seem like they don't have problems, because they're hiding their problems. And so I'm using this as like a template to help people. So that's kind of the biggest thing I'm doing with the mythology, and that's what I'm trying to explore. The outer world, which is where you and I exist right now, which is how you're watching me, how I'm speaking to you. This is the outer world. In a weird way, it's kind of not, because it's the internet, huh? So it's kind of a strange thing. I don't know how to interpret that, right? But then there's the inner world, and that's obvious. That's your own internal self and all the conflicting parts of you, all the different voices, all the different feelings, the memories, the traumas, and the triumphs, and whatever makes you a human being is your inner world. And we're trying to merge those two. That's kind of what mythology seems to be doing. And Joseph Campbell called that the mythos, that which lies between the inner world and the outer world of an individualized person. But even like in a cultural sense, even in like an understanding of a group of people. So that kind of thing is working together, and that seems to be what we're trying to, I don't want to say invoke, but I can't think of the right word right now. So invoke is going to be the word I'm using. Trying to create this system. And I want you along on the ride, whoever you are. So that's kind of where we are in that part. I'm also refamiliarizing myself with some medieval literature because it's one of my favorite eras in literature. It's very strange, right, to the modern ear and mind, more like. Very strange because you're just kind of like, there's so much that you don't know, like a lot of times they'll describe the saddle or like the outfits. Outfits were a huge thing. Like, let me tell you about that Samite outfit. I don't even know what Samite is, you know. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that you got to, reacquaint your mind with and understand it. But I'm coming out of reading a lot of ancient literature and I'm moving into medieval and stuff and finding it rather enjoyable. We don't know what we're talking about. We're just rambling. We don't plan our life. I had a conversation with someone recently about being accidental like. And I termed this bumbling and avoiding the coulda. What I mean by that is I try to live my life in a way of like, I don't know how I got here, but I'm here. And I'm not going to sit here and think of all the scenarios that could happen to me. I'm going to just be here, be present, react in real time, and be honest to myself. And when I make mistakes, I'm going to try to learn from those mistakes and I'm going to try to correct it if I need to, or open my eyes to realize, oh, I should have been doing this the whole time, or whatever that could be. So I call it bumbling, avoid the coulda. And so like there they go to be bitches with each other. So like for instance, a couple days ago, I woke up, my alarm did not go off. It turned off after I don't know how to explain. Let me try to explain it like this. In the morning, you know how like when you set your alarm and it goes off, you go, oh, and you hit the thing and it goes, okay, I'll go off again tomorrow because you set me that way. For some reason, mine stopped doing that. It just says, I'll turn off forever. And I forgot to turn the alarm back on. So I woke up at 5 o'clock a.m. and I thought, oh shit, my alarm didn't go off at 4. So I got up, got dressed, and just ran out the door. 6 minutes. And I was just driving, right? So I'm behind the wheel 6 minutes after waking up. And I knew, I was like, okay, you're going to be groggy, you're going to be sleepy, you're not going to make some good decisions. You're not fully alert yet to be driving 60 plus miles an hour in a metal death trap. But anyway, I went anyway. And so I was going down the road, and of course, because I'm late, well, that means a deer's got to be running into the road. And I just looked out ahead, and there was 2 deer in the other lane, and the one ran off, and the other one's like, I'm going to turn around, and I smashed into the deer, right? Fucking hit it, bounced off, went sliding on the pavement, and I just kept going. Didn't stop, just like like GTA. I was like, bam, I'm like, okay, I can't stop. I got to go to work. I got a mission I'm on. And then I went to work, and I was like, anyway, and I just had my day. Right now, I'm gonna pause because maybe I didn't ever explain this part, but I have a truck, and on the front of my truck, I have this grill guard. Giant grill guard, wraps even around my lights and everything. So I knew there was no damage, whatever. I just drove in. Not a big deal. That's why I bought it, because I drive a lot at night. And came in handy, didn't even make a scratch, a dent, nothing. And so that's why I just kept driving. If I had a car, I probably would have had to pull off. That's why I suggest people get trucks. So I was thinking about it and I reanalyzed it and I remember that moment now. You know how like when something's going to happen, it slows down? Well, it slowed down during that and I made active decisions. Even though I was sleepy. This is talking about the Bumblin and the coulda. So as I saw the 2 deer there, I coulda stopped and right, and slowed down because I was going about 60. I could have stopped in time and avoided them. But I was tired and I didn't make a proper decision. I just said, well, just trust this. And it ran out in front of me and I did not swerve. I did not turn or nothing. I just said, you got to hit it dead on because it's I'm not gonna fucking go into the goddamn ditch and possibly get really hurt because of a deer. So I hit the deer, drove off. After it was done, I found it, dead when I came home from work. And I just like that lasted maybe a few seconds, but in my mind that was like a 10-second adventure that happened. I made the decision. I said, you know what? I'm gonna test my grill guard. I want to see how good this is. I spent $800 fucking dollars on this thing. It went through a garage already. Can it handle this? And so, and it did. And it's paid for itself already. But that was one part of it. I was like, I want to test. Fuck it. I'm going to finally just do this. Let's just do this. Who gives a shit? And so we did do it. And it was okay. It was fine. But I made that decision then and there. I didn't think more of it than like, I'm going. Let's happen. I didn't think of the couldas though. Like, well, you could have gotten really hurt, or you could have done this, or this could have happened. I didn't even think about the couldas. I just let the woulda happen. And it happened. And I'm okay. And I went to work and told my wife, and she says, are you okay? Do you feel like jarred or anything? And I said, I don't feel anything, like, not that I don't give a fuck. I kind of feel bad. I didn't mean to hurt anything. I'm never setting out to hurt anyone, but it was one of those moments where I was explaining to a guy at work, and I said, I honestly could have avoided that. If I really wanted to, I could have avoided that. But for some reason, my mind it wasn't processing quick enough. Because I live my life very in tune. I'm very aware of the world around me and other people. I'm very cognizant of everything happening, far away from me and up close. I pay attention to this stuff. So I try to really pay attention to everything in my world. And I'm very, very keen of it. And so that's what I meant when I was like, no, I could have avoided. If I really tried hard enough, it could have been an avoiding thing. But for some reason, I didn't want to. And it's just like, I don't know. That's how I live my life. Like, I don't know. Not really sure. And so, like, I was trying to explain that to this guy at work, and I said, it's like, I said, when I went outside, all of a sudden, there were strange plants growing in my little garden. And I thought, I don't know what the hell that is. And then they slowly turned bigger and bigger. And I was like, what is this? And then boom, they were pumpkins. Now, I threw seeds over there from some pumpkins we got, and they finally worked. And they became pumpkin patch. Massive fucking thing. It was huge. I did not plan that. I did not want that. I did not take care of it. I didn't do anything. It just happened. I went outside and I just thought, it's easy to be a farmer, I guess. You just watch it grow. You don't have to even touch it. And it did. And it did its own thing. And I lived a lot of my life like that, where I always just kind of say, don't know what's going to happen today, but if it happens, we'll be with it. I don't like to make huge decisions moving forward in my life a lot. It's like, and this will tie back into the writing, but I don't know, like if I have to get on my roof and kind of fix a couple things, that'll just happen in the moment. I'll just be sitting here like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I just go up there and I just go make whatever I have to do, like patch a hole or something, get underneath my home and work on a few things. It's not like a planned event where I'm like, I will do this tomorrow at this time, and then we're going to do that, blah, blah, blah. And that's just kind of how I've always lived my life, is very just in the moment, bumbling around like a fool, trying to avoid the coulda. This could happen, that could, you could have gotten hurt, you were by yourself, this could. Is it foolish? Probably. But my point of bringing this up is, we also write that way too. So when it's a new memory, just know I sat there bumbling. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck we're doing, but we have to do something. And so I start writing, and the story happens, and I just think, no idea what's going to happen now or what I should do, but I'm going to just keep going. And I avoid the couldas. I avoid the like, well, you could have done this. You could have gone here. Or, the story could have done that. And I just ignore it and I just let it penetrate as far as it goes and then wrap it in a bow when it's done. And that's really it. It's in some sense, it's kind of like living in a dream. It's kind of like, like when you're having a dream, generally you don't try to control it. Like, hold on, I got to make things happen. You just kind of say, it feels like another world. You tell yourself it is another world and I'm going to treat it as such. And I'm going to respect the rules here and I'm going to listen to what the dream is saying. Yes, it is a part of you, but when you're in it, it doesn't feel like it. It kind of feels like it's something other. So you just allow the dream to happen. And whatever, I don't know, like whatever outcome comes from your dream, you just take that out. Well, I've approached that with life too. It's like, I respect the rules, the boundaries. I know I cannot fly. I know that I'm not invulnerable to damage. I know that I have limitations. I know that I must eat. I have to shit and piss. I understand the rules of this place. And not only that, but I understand the cultural rules, the domestic rules. I understand I can't just attack somebody. I can't steal things. Well, you can, but you know what I mean? Like, there's punishment for it. But, like, you understand the concept to it and you respect it, but you live through it. You don't push anything around, like test the boundaries of this world. Like, well, what happens if I slowly steal from this person? When will they finally notice? Or you don't test things, like what if I do this? And how long can I get away with not paying my taxes? I don't know. Stupid shit, right? You don't do that. You don't test the world. You just say, I understand that you want me to be this, so I will be it. And I'm going to see what comes. What things fall into my lap, what things I look at, what things take me, and how I use that to understand my world. So why is it that I'm living in my world and I'm reading medieval literature and you're not? Why? Well, just because we're different people, right? But I didn't go searching for it. It kind of felt like, and I'm using that term, not it was, but it felt like it found me, right? So that's because it's my own personal life. If I'm going to learn storytelling, and I said, if I'm going to write my fantasy, I don't want to copy another fantasy. I want to copy fairy tales. I want to copy real life literature from before the medieval era. I can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's kind of like why Tolkien was more popular, because that's what his did. He didn't look at, like, I love like Terry Pratchett, you know what I mean? Or Guy, I don't know, something or other, I can't remember his name. Or Brandon Sanderson. Like, no, it's not. Fuck that. You have to go beyond it. Go beyond Tolkien. Go beyond all of that stuff. And I think that's where I try to find the roots. And because I was trying to find the roots, well, I had to learn what mythology is. I had to learn what they think mythology is. I had to try to uncover all these things so I can move my way through it. And it opened up worlds to me, to the point where I think my fascination is words. Words are fucking bizarre. It's so, like, for instance, it's so unnatural for us to read. Reading to the general public, the average folk, that isn't the wealthy class or the middle class. Reading to us is very relatively new. Late 1600s-ish, going into the 1700s and all that. I'm not like a scholar or historian, okay? But it seems to be around the 1700s and into the 1800s that it really started coming onto the masses. Once the printing press was invented, it made it a little bit more palatable and easier to create books. And so after that, let's say 1800s into the 19, where the average folk are starting to read. In fact, you have to train yourself how to read. It's not a natural concept. It's not like, yeah, just reading is something God-given. And, when God wrote the Bible, like, no, that's not natural. It's not a normal thing. Language, as we speak it, is, if you want to call it, the normal thing, right? Written language is strange. It is very strange. Looking at words etched down on a, let's say, in our case, in the modern era, on a piece of paper, that is a strange thing. I'm striking words onto a piece of paper with a typewriter. That's a strange thing. You know what I mean? On your computer, you got your little keyboard and shit, and you're typing a document or an email or whatever the fuck. It's kind of weird because your brain doesn't hear that way, right? We've talked about this before. Your brain doesn't think with letters, it forms them together into sentences, right? It thinks in images and sounds and stuff like that, memory and everything. So it's kind of, I don't know. I've had this weird fascination with words and how they fit together. You know, sometimes when I'm writing, like the Harris Codex, I'll get into a flow state and it'll come out, right? But then sometimes I'll like see it. I'm like, is this even English? Like, because sometimes like I get so into the state, I'm like, I don't understand what this is saying. I feel like I'm writing another language. These aren't real words. How do I know how to put these together? How do I know that this creates a sentence? How do I know that? And it's so strange because it's coming out of me. How do I make what my mind thinks something that someone else will want to read? That's a strange idea, isn't it? Whether you like it or not, if you heard the Harris Codex, you listened to my mind create a story. That's weird, right? And so that's why I mean, like, I get fascinated with words and what they are. And how when you tell a story in a book, that's not really natural. Like, people didn't do that for a long time in human history. It was oral storytelling. We would go around the campfire, maybe, or maybe later in history to a pub, or someone would come to our house and tell us stories, like a bard or something, a poet. That's how we heard stories, because stories were acted. They were told. Think of Homer's, the famous case, think of Homer's epic, the Iliad and the Odyssey. That was told, kind of like a play. That's why we're so keen to movies, because movies are so similar to that. I'm going to tell you a story visually. You don't have to read, you watch. And so I think that's why that's more natural to us, right? We've always been into plays and stuff. And that's kind of maybe why we're falling away from reading books as we do. People like audiobooks more because it's more natural. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, 1,000 years ago, we don't go down to the inn, if you will, and sit down and like, okay, we're gonna hear a story, and the guy's like, grabs a piece of paper and he just starts reading to himself. Like, no, you didn't do that. Like, he would tell us the story. And that's why in the past, like, storytellers would have to memorize huge, huge pieces of information in their head, whole stories, all the little details, right? And there are ways that they had things to help them do it, with the rhyming conventions, or with, mentioning certain things constantly or whatever. There was ways to do it, but it was such a strange thing that they had to memorize a whole story. If I told you to memorize the Fellowship of the Ring right now and tell it to me, it'd take you a while, because you'd have to remember every little piece of it, right? You can't leave anything out, because it's all crucial to the story. And that's where it was born, right? And then now all of a sudden we're in this era, which kind of really started in, I would wonder, would have started in the Renaissance and moved its way forward by evolving from that point, where individualized stories are, here's what I'm thinking, here's my story, started to really happen. I'm no longer telling you the epic of our culture or a country or something that embodies a principle that we should have as humans. And this is kind of when I think, this is a speculation, when we started to go, here's a story that I made up for you to listen to. And then, we go so far in the future, we start to see stories get more psychological, more inner thoughts, more like, and I think and wonders. to the point where, like, for instance, if you listen to like my stories, the entire time it's it seems like most of my writing is the character thinking. I always joke about that. I'm like, there's about 10% movement, 90% thinking. It seems to be how it goes. If you listen to the Harrius Codex, how many times is he just going and thinking about what's happening and not just doing it? As hard as I tried, for instance, to show don't tell, I can't do it. I like to fucking tell. I like to just go into the mind and think about what I think is happening, because that's really what is happening. Do you know what I mean? I guess like that's why it's more natural to me to say Harris is going to think about the repercussions of all of this. Harris is going to think about what is happening around him, because in real life, that's what's happening. It's all in your head. The world that you live in is in your head. You made this so. Not maybe, well, it is in a sense. I don't know how to explain this. Not 100% visually, but the way that you look at the world, react to the world, and see the world is the way that you choose to do it. That does not mean outside sources cannot influence it, because they do. I mean to say that you're the one who infers what's happening to you based on your experience and everything that's happened to you. You're creating the world around you. For instance, if you're sitting there stewing because you're angry and you're angry and you're angry, you're going to all of a sudden, and it's not even happening, you're going to think everyone's out to get you. That's you making that happen, not them. And though they may do something that does hurt you, that wasn't them doing that, that was you doing that to yourself, right? Something like that, right? If you have a happy-go-lucky kind of attitude and you think nothing wrong could ever happen, you're going to invite more positivity, but you're going to reaffirm an outside, how do I word this? Man, this stuff. You're going to infer negativity as something external. It's not me, it's them. Because when it comes upon you, it's an outside sensation, not an internal one, really. Because I'm the positive guy. It works every way. I don't know. I can give so many more examples, but that's not the point. And when we see that, we're seeing more individualized stories. So, for instance, my story is more internal. That's kind of, I'm going for that. I'm trying to show you this is how he is seeing the world. This is not necessarily what's actually happening. But Harius thinks X, Y, and Z. So when I kind of said, oh, I'm working on the next part of the Harius Codex, I'm saying, okay, this is what he thinks is happening, but what is really happening? So I'm trying to figure that out, and I'm sitting at the typewriter trying to make it so. But it is an interesting thing, is it not? The internal world and the outside world, which is apparently the theme of this fucking video. That's where we're kind of stuck. Of pulling what's internal, your internal mythology, your personal myth, your dream interpretation, and comparing it to the external world that so many vast things exist. So it's so fascinating when you can look into mythology and folk stories and haunted stuff and you know what I mean, like, paranormal. You have that, but then you look over here and there's some people that think so scientifically that they think all that's bullshit, right? And everything in between. There's so much in this world. There's guys that know everything there is to know about an engine of a car. There's videos about how to properly create fucking fences, how to do your gutters. There's videos about, driving techniques for a manual car. There's videos about how to read better, how to read good. There's videos about writing and makeup and I don't know, metalworking and dudes creating swords, and videos about cameras and stuff, nature, hiking, mountain climbing. Like, there's so many fucking things in this world that when you're trying to take your inner world and you're trying to put it out, you're just like, how do I compare this with all that? How do I compare my truth that I've discovered through my life into all of that? How can I tell a guy that climbs mountains what I think is right? Let alone a fucking philosopher. How do I have a conversation with a scholar of medieval literature about what I think writing is? Because it can be so confusing out there, right? Your personal interests are minuscule in comparison to what the world has in store, just on a human level. Just on a human level. We're not even talking about the natural world, the rock world, the animal world. That's a whole nother fucking thing. How do you live in unison with the landscape you're on? How are you affecting that? Well, you have an internal world of how you identify the landscape around you. The landscape to you may be, I need a manicured lawn. I have people come out and spray I don't know how often people do that stupid shit. Dude, that might be how you see your landscape. It has to be perfect and clean and nice and orderly and cut. That fucking baby boomer shit. Or you might see it as a natural thing. Okay, Percy. Hold on. You might see that more naturally. You might see it like, I respect the grass. I don't cut it. I let the bugs do what they do. I let everything happen. I don't manicure anything. The land is itself and everything in between. But that's just how you identify it. It can be jarring like that. And like, how do I take this inner world of my understanding and like, how do I navigate it and function properly with the world around me? And that's kind of why I was trying to say Bumblin. Bumblin. Or as some people would say, bumbling. Bumbling, trying to avoid the could have. That's how probably you guys might say it, but where I come from, it's bumbling to the coulda. So like, to me, that's the way that I'm navigating it now. I'm not forcing things, so forcing a concept, right? I have a belief system, and then you talk to me about yours, and I'm like, no, no, no. You need to know this is what this is, and it's that, and it's the other thing, and these are what you should do. I don't do that. I just say, that's fantastic that that's what you believe. I'm going to kind of reflect on that a little bit and to think about it, and then I'll keep moving on. And if someone says, what do you believe? I say, I believe whatever. Apparently, well, not really. I question everything, and I just go, I don't know, is generally what I come up with. You've been questioning life for about 20 years. Not what do you know now? And I say, not much. I know that I don't know, and I just keep going to try to figure out why that is, because I'm trying to connect this inner world with the outer world. My inner mythology, the Harrius Codex, explores that in a very interesting way. The story began not very well, but it's a work in progress. It began with Titans creating a world. They came to this void and they said, we got to make light and we got to make people and all that. And they made a world. And as that was happening, one of the Titans was tasked to create consciousness. And because he was tasked to create consciousness, it went on this whole adventure to which he left this dimension and discovered, oh, this all exists in the mind of a man who was derelict, left alone in space, hollowed out, and formed into a machine. That's where our world exists inside of. We are in that. So the universe is the mind of a man turned machine. Huh. Right? That's why the Harrius Codex does that, because I'm trying to say there are facets and levels to this stuff. And the reason we're going into the Harrius Codex is, Dove has to uncover what really happened to Harrius. Because Dove has to understand how he is Harrius. How am I Harrius? You got to pull apart the stories and try to figure out where you are in them. And so I'm doing that because I'm approaching that. That's the way life is. You have this internal world that you think exists and has all these rules, and we're at war with Iran now. We're going to send men to, what was it? They're going to send people around the moon again, apparently. All this shit. We think this matters. We have gasoline, we have oil, we have electric cars now, we have the environment, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, where does that exist, though? Where do all those things you just said exist? Boundaries of a country, gasoline. That's a resource. Sending people to, I don't know, fly around the moon or whatever. Artemis, I think it was the name of the Artemis 2. Where does that all exist? In minds. Minds created all of those things. That does not mean they don't exist. My point is, they didn't just like, that just happens. Countries come out of nowhere. They grow from the ground. Spaceships do too, and people get in them. And no, it all was made by human beings. And my point is, the world exists inside the mind, and that's the God of your world is yourself, a part of yourself. And I don't mean that in a way to say that you are a God. I mean that in a way to say that you think what a God is. As in, how you interpret a God is something in here. A lot of the times people use the definition through other people. Well, what does the Bible say? What does the Quran say? What is the Bhagavad Gita, or whatever the fuck it's called? What does that say? And I'm trying to explore the idea of like internal and external. So, for instance, in the Harrius Codex, he doesn't have any, he remembers all this, but only when Dove is exploring it with him, some internal part of himself. And when Dove asks him a simple question, like in the last episode, what did he say? At the end there, he said, "Who's that woman in the tent there? Who is she? You keep calling her my love and you keep caring about her, but your relationship with her is kind of weird. Who the fuck is she?" And what does Harry say? "I don't know. I know that I love her deeply and she matters to me, but I don't remember who she is." Why? Why? How is that so? And at the end of the episode, Dove convinces Harrius to make a decision that was not scripted. He says, "You chose love. You chose to save her and everyone else. Instead of killing yourself, you chose to help everyone. Because that's what I want you to do." He's telling his God, use air quotes around that, what he thinks God should do. What do fucking humans do all the time? They always say, well, it works in mysterious ways. This is God's plan. God looks out for me. God does this. He does whatever you want, doesn't he? And the minute he doesn't, you're like, oh, I don't understand God. But he works in mysterious ways. No, you do, dipshit. Like that's how that is. That's what's going on. That's you. It's your head. It's your mind. It's the biggest part of the Harrius Codex is I'm trying as best as I can, okay? Which is the topic of this video, is trying to talk about the inner world and the outer world in such an ethereal way that I don't want to ever come across as I'm telling you to believe X, Y, and Z. I'm trying to do the Harrius Codex in a way where I say, maybe you can see what I'm trying to say here about said inner and outer world. And maybe, which is what I'm always trying to encourage, but maybe you can, in the comment section, open that up and talk about what you think the inner and the outer world is. I left an invitation in the comment section, but man, this doesn't ever happen yet. We're not quite there yet. Usually opinionated people are the ones that do it, right? So I'm trying my best to work on how to make this so, but not to stay in the Bumblin state of mind, to say, I'm not going to sit here and hardline control my world. I'm going to react, I'm going to learn, and I'm going to try and, what's the word? Not penetrate. Navigate through it with my own intent. That's my goal. I'm just trying to stay clear of the bad things, but make sure I understand where they are. I'm trying to learn the good things. I'm trying to play by the rules, but at the same time break them when I can. And I'm trying to create what I think the world should be at the same time, as all humans do. That's how we have progress, right? Someone does something, everyone's like, oh, you can do that now. Let's do that. So I'm trying to do all these things, but not in a breaking kind of way. I don't mean to break society, but at the same time, I really think society is kind of fucked with the way people are and stuff and how we limit ourselves. And a lot of times we limit ourselves when we're trying to be positive. The road to hell, right? What if everything you knew that was trying to be positive in the world right? Like equality, equity, or rights or some shit. I don't know. Something positive. What if that's actually doing a lot of negative? Something that a lot of people are a little afraid to think about, but it is a huge possibility. All we gotta do is look at history. So that's that. And that's the way it is. Inner world and outer worlds. What's the difference? I don't know, something like that. Until next time.